Welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in, listening, wherever and however you are consuming this incredible content. We thank you. Tell your friends, family, mother-in-law, colleagues, everyone you know to download the Startup Junkies podcast. My name is Caleb Talley, one of your regular Startup Junkie hosts, and joined by Jeff Amerine, our co-host, Startup Junkie OG.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And we have a special guest host today with us in from international travel, Permjot Valia. He's the Goodwill Ambassador for the state of Arkansas, representing on behalf of Canada.
Thank you very much. Yes.
And thank you for being here. Thank you for making the trip just for this podcast.
My pleasure.
God save the king and Justin Trudeau. We want to make you feel at home.
Because I'm sure in all the things God's worried about, that would be top of his list right now.
And so just setting the example and the standard for all of the people that email us to do virtual podcasts from around the country. They have to come here because he made the trip. So
absolutely. It's a podcast, I believe it's in the top 2% of global podcasts.
You're exactly right.
So, top 2, if it was in the top 20%, I'd be, they could come to me. But top 2%, you got to come here.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of downloads.
And then when you told me I was going to be meeting the next guest in person, that was I'm going to go. I'm coming straight away.
That next guest is our friend Elizabeth Prenger.
Yes.
Thank you for joining. Elizabeth is the founder of Prose Creative, a writing service that provides innovative copywriting, content creation, branding. That's how we met originally when she came and met us at Startup Junkie. Now she is the founder of a device called the Assicle. She's also a co-founder of FemHealth Founders, which will be launching an accelerator program. So I think we could just say that you're a serial entrepreneur at this point.
I blame Startup Junkie for all of it.
Well, we'll take the credit for it.
Yes.
We'll take the full credit for it.
It's a lifetime of bourbon and bad habits has led us here.
Yeah.
So
I think that before I launched Prose Creative, I came to meet specifically with Startup Junkie. Just be like, what am I doing? Do I do this? And everybody was very supportive and wealth of resources. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you. And I remember, I think you were meeting with Morgan, one of our former consultants, and she referred you to me to talk about some marketing and stuff, I think something along those lines. And we were like, we'll just let you lead a workshop. Yeah. Just met you and now go lead a workshop for us. So it worked out. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Permjot, thanks for coming down to Canada for this
Elizabeth,
recording.
We've just lost one Elizabeth in England, and I thought I'm not going to miss out on the opportunity to spend time with another Elizabeth. Got to go with it.
Yeah.
Well played.
And we actually met through one of the excellent workshops that Startup Junkie put on.
That's right.
Great to see you in person.
Yeah. Permjot called me out, offended me a little bit, and then redeemed himself.
That's shocking that he would do that.
What, the redeeming or the offending?
The offending part.
We'll have a whole podcast for you to offend a listener.
I think we can, and I think we need to. I don't want to dive straight into it, but I think we do need to live. We need to have more honest, open conversations and not be afraid of offending, as long as you're also willing to backtrack and say, you know what? Upon reflection, I think I was. Well, I do know I was wrong, but it was great having that conversation with you offline, and actually then jointly come into a kind of a synthesis on views. So I just think it was great and very mature. And I just wish we could have more difficult conversations in a civil way, a bit like talking about entrepreneurship and the difficulties we all face.
Yeah.
So give us the origin story, Elizabeth.
The origin story of the Assicle.
Of you.
Oh, of me.
This
okay.
is like the Wolverine story. This is the
prequel. Yeah.
All right,
exactly.
X-Men. All right, I'm in.
So you start with the worst X-Men movie. That's what you're doing.
It was okay.
The X-Men movie.
It was okay.
Hugh Jackman's movie. It's because he's Australian. Is that why?
You hate the Aussies, not you?
Is he Australian?
He's Australian. He is Australian.
Yeah, I mean, what he is, there's like direct lineage back to debtor's prison in England. So
I'm not going there. This is the origin story.
It's the Vegemite.
Okay.
Vegemite sandwiches. Who invented that anyway? It had to be an Englishman.
It had to be a convict.
It was definitely a man. For sure.
No normal person would eat that, right?
So origin story. I'm originally from Little Rock. So I am an Arkansan. Went to the University of Arkansas for undergrad. I was a communications major because I wanted the major that had the least amount of numbers involved. So that's how
Can relate.
Now, as a professional writer, it makes sense that I was a communications major, but did not see that at the time. And then after college, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So someone invited me to join a gubernatorial race in Delaware. Random. Thank you, Max Deichler, who is a Fayettevillean as well. So I moved out to Delaware, worked on a gubernatorial race, and did community engagement and cold calling and canvassing, and that kind of set me on a path to work in politics. So I spent about 4 or 5 years in political consulting, community relations, strategic communications, fundraising. And then when I moved back to Arkansas, I jumped into the world of nonprofit. So I did strategic communications and fundraising for nonprofits in Arkansas. And in 2019, I decided that I was kind of done with this institutional type work environment, and I wanted to go out on my own, and I missed being creative, and I wanted to explore writing. And I launched Prose Creative in 2019, just offering copywriting support to businesses who needed to tell their story a bit better, do blog content, website writing. And I've kind of evolved the business of Prose Creative from just copywriting into brand strategy, and just helping businesses find their voice and their audiences. That was a rambling.
No, it was good. But then at some point you really lost your mind and decided you wanted to do a product company, right?
Yeah, that was just dumb. No, I'm kidding. I've learned, I think one of the things that I love the most about this journey of being an entrepreneur and launching these ideas is I've learned so much about things that I wouldn't have even considered looking into before, like the manufacturing process or the prototyping process or customer discovery. And entrepreneurship has just, it seems like it has taken off in Northwest Arkansas in a really big way. And it's cool to be a part of it. And these kind of, it seems like entrepreneurship has been around for a long time here, but from my perspective, it's just exploding in the past year, year and a half.
Yeah, I agreed.
And I know you've been in the entrepreneurship space for a really long time. So I've enjoyed learning from your perspective and hearing, your insights and stories as well.
Yeah, I was there the day they invented mercantilism about 500 years ago. So it has been a long time. No, I appreciate that. It's a long march, and we're only really in many ways 15-ish years into it.
Yeah.
And still have a long way to go. People oftentimes they're like, when are we going to be as advanced as Silicon Valley or Austin or wherever? Silicon Valley was a 75-year march. It takes a long time. It's a multi-generational thing to really have a venture ecosystem that's meaningful. So it's still early days.
Well, it's good to be in the early days, I think. The influx of resources and connections and the networks, like all the networks seem to be coming together. And I feel like in Northwest Arkansas, everyone is really motivated to make connections and to make further people ahead without any expectation of getting something back. And I think that's really special. I don't know if that's the case in a lot of other parts of the country.
Not. That's I'm not saying it's not completely unique to here, but it is definitely different. The DNA here is different than a lot of places. Yeah. Certainly different than the Mid-Atlantic. I spent a lot of time back there, and people are wired differently. They're not out to throw elbows or to disadvantage somebody. The first thing you'll hear if you come here as an entrepreneur is, glad you're here. How can I help? Yeah. From most everyone.
And they mean it.
They do. They
mean it.
For real.
And the organizations that are coming in from outside, the ones that come in with the approach to serve and collaborate are the ones that are still here and doing well and working well with all the other organizations as opposed to ones that might come in and throw elbows and zero sum type of mentality.
My nervousness is with success comes the pariahs. And I think, watch out. I think over the next 4 or 5 years, my prediction is you're going to get more and more pariahs coming into the region who look at this as and it's interesting to talk about Silicon Valley and stuff. And I think what all places, and especially Arkansas, which has its own very unique DNA, it needs to find, and it is finding its own way.
That's right.
Silicon Valley way is not.
It's not our way.
It's not the way. No. And I think lots and lots of economic development initiatives around the world have gone horrifically wrong because they've tried to replicate Silicon Valley. We've got Silicon North, we've got Silicon Roundabout in London, we've got Silicon Valley in Israel, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't work. If economic development was easy as taking a copy and paste model, everyone would be doing it. But Elizabeth, what I really loved about what you talked about was, what I like is, and Jeff and I talk about this often, is you clearly, when you're talking about your product, you're in love with the pain, you're in love with the problem you're solving, and I love that. And I think the one thing I would say about entrepreneurship, and you've seen this, some people want to be, it's like being famous. People 20, 30 years ago, when you ask kids, they didn't want to be famous. They want to be a footballer, they want to be a singer, they want to be a boxer, an athlete, whatever. Now they want to be famous. Why? I just want to be famous. And I think entrepreneurship's beginning to suffer from the same thing. People say, I want to be an entrepreneur. And what I really liked and found very refreshing about you was you didn't talk about your identity. You were talking about the problem and the women who suffer from the problem your product solves. And I just wish we saw more of that.
Thank you for saying that. I think I'm finding a very similar theme as closely as I've been working with other women entrepreneurs. And I can't speak for the wonderful male entrepreneurs out there because I don't find myself working as closely with them, but I feel like women are just innately honing in on the problem. What is the problem that we're solving? Because a lot of us feel that pain point. At least the women that I've been working with in the women's health and wellness space, like menopause is a massive issue. It's painful. And most women experience that. Menstruation, all the pain associated with periods or endometriosis, or, you know, when it comes to postpartum, like breastfeeding for me was very traumatic, and it's supposed to be this natural, every woman can do it, but that's not really the case. So there's a lot of, in the women's health space, there just seems to be a lot working against us and how we can better control the healing options for our bodies. So I think having that personal insight into that problem, into the pain point, is really important across any product, any technology, any solution.
Talk about, as a follow-on, talk about what you found to be the shortcomings of the existing product landscape, competitive landscape, and then how you positioned Assicle to solve some of those issues.
Well, it might be helpful for me to explain a little bit what the Assicle is, because I think I may have forgotten that part. But I'm currently prototyping. I'm developing a postpartum recovery product. It's a cold, warm compress anatomically designed for women to help us recover from tearing, hemorrhoids, anal fissures, all these lovely things that happen to women's bodies during childbirth that nobody talks about. So we're not only designing a better product for women's bodies, but we're giving women a humorous approach to talk about something that's hard to talk about. It's childbirth. There are certain elements of childbirth that are just not talked about as a society. It's taboo. It makes people uncomfortable. It feels very uncomfortable. So I'm okay talking about it because I felt the pain point. I don't mind if other people feel uncomfortable hearing about the pain point. So I'm developing this. It's a direct-to-consumer CPG product, and currently prototyping with a wonderful company in Nashville, and I'm planning to go to market in the next 6 to 9 months, which, 9 months. We're having a baby.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
how appropriate.
Yeah,
How
super
appropriate.
It's going to be direct-to-consumer e-commerce, ordered through your website, maybe sold through Amazon or some of the other .com sources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What was your original question?
Just talking about the so you've come to this based on, it was a pain-based solution, something that you personally experienced, did your customer discovery, but some of that included also profiling the competitive landscape. Yes. What else is out there and the limitations? I think it's always interesting to know how you position against the current state, so to speak. Yeah,
it's for me as a brand messaging consultant, the positioning is what I get really excited about. From the marketing, like the thinking as the consumer that we're wanting to address. There's a lot that we can do with this brand, but specifically the products that are on the market right now, they're just lacking in various components. The market leader is a brand that I don't even know if I should say the competitor name, but it's a
Go ahead. Slam
so Mama Frida, it's a great company, great brands. I purchased some of their products when my kids were babies, were teeny tiny. But they're the category leader, and their product is disposable. So it's creating a lot of waste for the environment. Our solution is reusable. So we're not only taking care of moms, we're taking care of Mother Earth. The products that are reusable, they are they're encased in like PVC plastic. So it's really hard. It doesn't look like it's designed for the woman's body. So we're improving upon the design components as well. Ours will be this very soft, malleable silicone. It's easy to clean, it's easy to use, and it's easy to talk about. It's kind of our claim to fame. We're going to be really focusing our marketing efforts on millennial, Gen Z, kind of the next up and coming birthing population. And they're looking for sustainability. They're looking for brand trust. They're looking for that provocative messaging. And I kind of look at the menstruation cup space and period panty space, like those brands are killing it right now, which indicates that to me that our society is more open to talking about these quote unquote taboo topics around women's bodies.
When do women first realize, though, that they will need this? Is it afterwards? Do people tell them beforehand that you might experience this?
I think that's one of the pain points that we are trying to solve with this product is we want women to talk more about it. So before so as they're thinking about it, and this is something that I experienced personally, and in my customer discovery, I heard this from a lot of moms. When you're preparing for a baby, you're really thinking about the baby. So you're buying the diapers, you're buying the crib, you're getting the nursery, you're doing all the things for the baby, which is obviously very important, but we don't really think about what we need. We don't think about, like, we know what mastitis is, but unless you've experienced mastitis, it is awful. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Maybe my worst enemy, but you just don't know what to expect until you're experiencing that pain point. So a lot of the products that women are finding, obviously they're finding them online. There's so many online baby registries through Amazon, through Walmart, through Target, through Bye Bye Baby, The Nest, and all that stuff. It's a lot of word of mouth. So I'm going to tell my best friend, like, oh man, I had a 4th degree tear. It was so painful. This is what I used to help. And there's a lot of word of mouth. So hopefully we can get ahead of the curve with targeted ads on Bye Bye Baby, Amazon registries, and make it almost a novelty item, but it's not a novelty item. It's actually very useful.
And is it reusable or is it so?
Yeah, it's reusable. You can, so you would have it either in the freezer or you can also heat it in the microwave. Use one no longer than 15 minutes because otherwise that's counter conducive to the healing process. But once you're finished using it, then you drop it in the in the washing machine or the dishwasher, or we'll have a spray. We're trying to figure out what we're collecting data on how women would actually want to clean this product. And then they can switch it out. And
so is it non-conducive to the healing process because you don't need to use it for longer than 15 minutes or because it's not cold anymore, it's not hot anymore?
Well, biologically, from a medical perspective, I do have a medical advisor, Dr. Kristen Markell, who's amazing. If you need a gynecologist or a women's health professional, I highly recommend her. We talked about the anatomical design needs, kind of the healing process. And if you have something that's cold on an area of your body for too long, it prevents blood flow. So it's actually going to slow down the healing process. So it's actually, that's a good thing for our product because it's hard to find a material that will stay that cold that long. So really that 10, 12, 15 minute time marker is ideal.
The reason I ask is I could see where like there'd be opportunities. You're selling like 1-to-1 person since it's reusable, but the opportunity to kind of have like a 2-pack or a 3-pack if they want to wash one or have one in the freezer ready to go again if that was the case. Yeah, we'll
sell it in a pack of 2 or 3 depending on what the cost of goods are. We're still figuring that out, but we'd love to see down the line maybe there's a version 2.0, 3.0 that incorporates vibrational therapy so that physical therapists, pelvic floor therapists, which I didn't realize how much can happen to your pelvic floor just carrying a baby. Whether you deliver vaginally or through C-section, your pelvic floor gets destroyed during pregnancy. And pelvic floor therapists are such an amazing resource for women. So if you're pregnant, going to be pregnant, look into pelvic floor therapists. But there's a lot of like prolapse and weakened pelvic floors, and that vibrational component could be really helpful in further recovery for moms.
And you talked about word of mouth. I would think that would give you the opportunity to kind of collaborate potentially with mom bloggers
Yeah.
and influencers and people in that space that really have the opportunity to kind of reach those new mothers
Big
that
time.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, the Mom Blog Network. I mean, there's just so many influencers in the mom baby space. OBGYNs, doulas, home birth nurses, moms themselves. I mean, there's just a massive, there's so many opportunities as far as the marketing and sales channels online with Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I get excited about, I'm a big social content consumer, as is the rest of the world. Being able to use those platforms for really educational purposes, like really helpful content for moms, I get really excited about.
When you think about the external of the product, do you have to do anything special to make it hypoallergenic or, avoid things like toxic shock, antipathogenic type of stuff?
Well, it's not going inside of the body.
Right.
So we don't have to worry as much about the toxic shock or anything like that. We will be using a silicone that is designed to withhold body needs.
Gotcha.
So that's the prototyping company that I'm using works with brands that are already being applied to the body or inserted into a baby's mouth. So kind of leaning into their expertise and guidance on.
They've got all the clearances already, and it's, so that you can rely on that, not have to do anything special. And nothing FDA, right? This won't require any kind of 510K or anything
Exactly.
like that.
That's why James Bell was my mentor when I was going through the Arkansas iFund Accelerator program, and he was like, medical device. And I was like, I just don't think I want to mess with FDA and insurance, and hospitals may or may not want this product, but I'm pretty confident that the moms will.
Sure.
The moms are going to be the ones to buy this.
Well, and that's a difficult road to market.
Yeah.
And it can, even if it's a 510K and there's a predicate device, it can take a couple of years and a lot of expense. So it's always smart. If you can get it to market in a normal commercial path, you're probably better off.
Yeah, I'd like to. That's definitely the approach we're taking right now. I'd love to innovate upon this product even more. I think I may have joked with you about this, Caleb, early in the process, like women should be sitting on gold after they deliver. And I'm like, actually gold has microbial, like antimicrobial.
Both.
Yeah, or like rose quartz. We can get real woo-woo because I love the woo-woo stuff. Like women could be sitting on these like charged crystals to,
It's marketing opportunity.
Yeah, maybe we'll innovate that way. But
You could do a private label deal with the Kardashians and probably have it.
or Gwyneth Paltrow.
Exactly.
Hit me up.
Yeah,
I'm here.
And we talked about kind of your being problem focused and solution driven, and I think that's not just with Asticle, but I mean obviously with Prose too. You had a set of skills that you used in your career beforehand, and you saw the need to apply that and make that available. But as you were building and iterating on Asticle, I'm assuming that you saw some of the lack of resources available specifically for women's health.
Yeah.
Talk about that process, and then like the launch of FemHealth Founders, like how that led to the other.
Yes. Okay. Great question. I'm going to piece a couple of things together. So when I was in the iFund program, I was, doing a lot of customer discovery, interviewing women on their postpartum recovery journey, product that they found helpful, what was not helpful. And I connected with two other women who have become very close friends of mine now, and we are co-founding this initiative together. But they were also creating products in the women's health and wellness space, one being menstruation, one being fertility, mine being postpartum. And we were kind of commiserating or like telling each other our stories. And then we identified very similar challenges in very specific areas, one being access to capital. The Arkansas Capital Scan just uncovered some daunting data around the amount of women receiving funding, either VC or grants or whatever. It's just very low. A lot of the subject matter experts that we were being connected to were men who they've not felt that pain point that we have experienced and that we're creating solutions around. And it was frustrating. We were having a lot of conversations and getting a lot of pushback from people that we didn't feel quite knew what we were talking about or what we were needing. And so we decided to kind of come together, bring our own personal experiences together, and figure out if we can, one, overcome these barriers together, and two, create a way to prevent other women from having to have these same frustrating conversations and disappointments. And so that's kind of that was the catalyst behind FemHealth Founders, which we can talk about here in just a little bit. But there was definitely this disconnect between a woman having an idea in the women's health space and then having access to people who knew how to propel us forward and give us the resources and the insights that we could really use. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. But essentially, it was like you saw the gap there as well, like the need to really kind of create around that, and then that led to
FemHealth Founders. Yeah, we just kept thinking like we can't be the only ones experiencing this, and then tapping into LinkedIn and following women in the women's health space. There's kind of a buzzword out there right now, FemTech, FemTech, which is kind of confused a lot with FinTech, financial technology. So we're actually kind of repositioning the term to FemHealth because they're like, oh, okay, I get it. It's women's health. We knew that if we were between the three of us having these same exact issues and experiences, we can't be the only one. So we started talking to other people and other founders in our networks about this idea of creating a resource for women to be able to tap into to push their ideas forward. And so FemHealth Founders is a nonprofit initiative that myself, April Roy, Natalie Hsu have co-founded to create a more welcoming ecosystem for women entrepreneurs who are creating solutions in the women's health and wellness space. It's lengthy, but I think it's easy to understand. We've partnered with a company out of Oklahoma City called Stitch Crew. They run accelerator programs all over the country in different industries and different verticals, but they're really passionate about women founders, minority founders, and they've been like an amazing partner to launch this accelerator. So we did announce a couple of weeks ago that we're launching FemHealth Accelerator to help women bring their ideas to market.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, we're like, what have we gotten ourselves into?
So far, what's the response been in terms of, I mean, do you feel people forming around that and wanting to get involved and be helpful?
It's pretty overwhelming, in the best way possible.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So people are running towards it saying, this is awesome, we want to help.
Yeah. We feel, talking about imposter syndrome, Permjot, we're these three women entrepreneurs. We're not doctors. We're not clinical physicians. And we're launching these businesses in a very meaningful way to us. So we're like, we're just here in Arkansas, middle America. But people are reaching out to us from all over the world. It's not just a national interest. Like, people are reaching out to us from all over the world. And it's really remarkable. It's sad that there's not more right now, but I just feel like there's going to be a lot more in the upcoming months and years.
Keep up to date on the latest news and economic development with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission's Arkansas Inc. newsletter. Each month, get the Arkansas Inc. newsletter, which spotlights the latest project wins and developments throughout the state, delivered to your email. The newsletter features major project announcements, company expansions and relocations, news articles, rankings, and more that highlight why Arkansas is a great state to do business. The newsletter is a snapshot of what AEDC has been working on and what we are following. The quarterly Tech Trends newsletter highlights the latest news in Arkansas's growing tech sector. You can learn about new Arkansas tech companies, computer science and cybersecurity initiatives, funding and venture capital announcements, and even more. AEDC offers 4 quarterly newsletters: the Food and Beverage Industry Digest, Aerospace and Defense Beacon, Timber Trends, and Tech Trends. To learn more or sign up for a newsletter, visit arkansasedc.com/news.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's 51% of the population, massively underrepresented in terms of entrepreneurs and investors.
And we have 80% of buying power. Like, women are the primary purchaser in the retail and healthcare space.
Right.
So we should be more involved. We should be making these products.
Makes sense.
I'm still amazed at the number of healthcare companies that have solutions for women that don't even have women on the board.
I know.
And I just find that incredible that, the first thing you do is you say, make sure you understand your customer, make sure the customers, there's a voice. Jeff Bezos famously always has a chair in all of his meetings set aside for the customer. Imagine your customers there. And I've always found it incredible that we have these feminine health businesses with no women having a voice in the leadership. I've just found that odd.
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with anything other than you got to understand your customer.
Yeah. So I get into these pretty intense topics related to women's health. So if we need to edit out any of this, this might be a good time to whisper into your microphone. But when you think about, so I'll use childbirth because that's been my primary focus over the past year. Well, and I'm a mom myself. So I've experienced childbirth. It's really intense. It's really painful. It's really traumatic. It's beautiful, but all the other things too. But when you look at childbirth, and if you are a woman delivering in a hospital, you're delivering that baby in the position that's the most convenient for the doctor. So it's your legs are up in the stirrups so that the doctors can see the baby coming out and catch the baby conveniently, which, we want the doctors to be able to see, but our bodies are made to deliver in a very different way than that and use gravity and be more animalistic. And I was doing some more research around childbirth and how women started sitting in that position to deliver. And it originates back in like the medieval days. This French king got pleasure out of seeing women in pain. So anytime there was a pregnant woman in his kingdom, exactly.
We would never do that.
He would make the woman come to give birth in his castle or wherever, so that he could watch, and then that stuck. And that's how women deliver babies today. Yeah. And it's icky and it's frustrating and it's So that's just one indicator of like how women have been required to accommodate the male environment.
Interject one thing.
Yes. 3
of my 4 kids were birthed that way. The last one, and she may be the smartest one of the 4, but not that I have any favorites, was not birthed that way. Sherilyn Moffat, who was the OBGYN, unfortunately she's since passed away. Yeah. She had my wife positioned kind of in a squat.
Yeah, right.
And it was freaking me out. Of course, I was freaked out all 4 times. I was like, man, I envy my dad who got to sit out in the waiting room smoking a cigar.
Right.
And here I am with a catcher's mitt, like I'm supposed to do something productive. But it was way different. And it was really a better experience.
Yeah.
For sure.
And to the point, your point,
and hopefully none of my 4 kids will listen to this, and neither will my wife of 38 years, because it might be details she didn't want me to share. But anyway, I hear you. I hear you on that
and
point.
To your point, it's 2022, and we're still, despite all the massive, we have that knowledge at our fingertips.
Yeah.
That's not the best way. And
Yes.
if I was guessing 90% of births take place that way, that's just that's not a, I just made that up.
And it's interesting, in the decision-making hierarchy, the people who get to make the decisions have the power. So in the decision-making hierarchy, it's the doctors who choose. Which is really interesting. I always remember, and I never thought I'd be talking about this and talking about football at the same time. But there was this legendary manager, Roy Keane, very aggressive manager, and there was this game coming up. It was a very important game, and one of his key players wasn't going to play because his wife had just given birth. And I remember this press interview that Roy Keane gave, where the journalist asked, "Are you not worried that he won't be playing tomorrow?" He says, "Why won't he be playing?" He said, "Well, he just had a baby." He said, "I think his wife gave birth. I don't see why he can't play football." And it was really interesting to me that even though the wife, it's amazing how many people say we're having a baby, and you're like, you're not. There is no we in this. But it's just always interesting that even that the narrative is about the guy sacrificing, not playing a game because, he wants to be there for his wife. And it was just incredible. It just really made me think that so many times the story is written by other people. And what you're trying to do is say, let's give the story back to the people who actually understand the pain, understand the problem, encounter this and want solutions. And the urgency women will have for finding a solution for this will simply not be the same as the urgency men have to find a solution.
Yeah, I agree. And I have the most amazing spouse. He's such a great dad. He was, whatever I needed, I knew he would bring to me and help me recover. But even even having a wonderful spouse, my mom was there, my mother-in-law was there, I felt really isolated and alone when I was in that recovery stage, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I wasn't as kind of like a control freak and high functioning control freak. I wanted to know what I was doing, and I didn't feel like I could ask for help. I didn't know how to ask for help. I thought I was just supposed to grin and bear it. I remember after you deliver a baby, you're still bleeding a lot. And I remember before checking out of the hospital, my nurse said, if you have a blood clot bigger than your fist, don't worry about it. It's normal. And I was like, that's not normal for me. I got so freaked out. And when I had mastitis, I have a great doctor and a great team of nurses, but I still had to wait a couple of hours for them to call me back. And you're just like in pain. Wow. So the system is just not set up to help us recover in a really sensitive time of healthcare need. I feel like England actually has a really great model that we should consider. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. They have a hotline that's 24/7, specifically designated for postpartum moms, so they can call and talk to a wet nurse or a nurse or a physician if they're having trouble nursing, if they're having pain, and it's just someone to talk to. And I can only imagine. I remember the 2 a.m. middle of the night feeding when I was struggling to breastfeed and my baby was really fussy and I was really stressed out and Cole was asleep because everybody's exhausted. And it's like, I just need to talk to somebody. And y'all do that in England, so thank you. We hope to do that here.
I mean, one of the interesting things about that is we had a minister of loneliness, and we recognise that loneliness is the inability to talk to someone. It's actually a killer. People are literally dying. And one of the things they've done in studies on longevity, they found that the most common characteristics of those who live longer and healthier are surrounded by close friends and close networks. And we are really underestimating. And I think societies, without, generalizing too much, but individualized societies, which North America, Canada, and the UK somewhat are, we're losing that ability to recognize the importance of being able to talk to someone.
Yeah, agreed. I'm working on a new concept of exploration around postpartum recovery, and if we can use virtual reality, AI to act as a postpartum doula, essentially, for moms to have better access to that, that year following childbirth. You have so many questions, especially if it's your first. You have so many questions. You feel like you should you have the book, you've read the books, you've read the articles, you follow the people on social media, but unless you're in it, you don't know what to ask for help. And it's easy to forget, like immense pain one day, the next day, everything's fine and dandy. And you're like, maybe I did need help. What was that? It doesn't matter.
Are you thinking it should be something that's interactive? That's interesting. There's some interesting AI human technology that would allow you, and it could be someone, the facial features or the avatar you're interacting with can be someone that's very familiar. Right. They do a little bit of green screen recording, and then it can be interactive. It's not scripted. Right. So talk to me after. I don't necessarily want to get.
I already have a name for this platform already. It's amazing.
Well, there's some technology out there from one of the South Korean companies we work for. I'll just give them an endorsement. Deep Brain AI. Deep Brain.
Okay.
We'll connect you to them. But they could do some things that would solve this problem, and it could be something that would be on a tablet or in a kiosk or on a phone or in a headset.
Because it needs to be hands-free because you're holding something all the time in that.
This could be really interesting, and it could be somebody very familiar. I mean, if you could have your grandmother do it or somebody that you'd want to talk to, or even the doctor. That you're comfortable with, but they don't have to be there, right? And it's not them saying every word per se because the AI is generating a response.
Exactly.
We can talk about it. We're solutioning here, but
I love sci-fi. I'm like all my sci-fi dreams are just coming true. I love it.
I'm going to build off a comment Permjot made about about like the story being told through the lens of the men and the doctors and that sort of thing. And you as a storyteller by trade, as a copywriter, it's like a perfect opportunity for you to retell that story and kind of take some of that back and give that back to the women around the topic of post recovery. And, with April and menstruation, your co-founder at FemHealth Founders, kind of doing the same thing around menstruation, reframing the conversation and creating community around the idea of how we look at this in a different lens. Yeah. And it seems like that's what you're trying to do with that. And it's,
we want to give women the words to better identify their needs. I think for me, one of my early motivating, I'm going to keep moving this idea forward with the Assicle. I remember I was doing some competitive landscape analysis, just walking into a CVS store, and I looked on shelves in the baby section and the mom section, and there was one box that had a product that was kind of similar to what I was envisioning. And it said, it's for down there. Let's give these things words. It's for your vagina. It's for your labia. It's for your anus. Let's call the body parts what they need to be called. You've got an elbow, you've got a nose, you have a labia. They're not bad words. So let's start using the words that we need to be able to describe our pain points and describe where we're uncomfortable and describe what we need help with. And I know April's doing that with FemPack. Natalie's working to do that for the fertility journey, which is incredibly traumatic for lots of couples. So we're going to keep doing that.
Awesome.
I think one of the things when we talk generally about entrepreneurship is and then specifically about, I think the issues that you bring up, Elizabeth, so articulately, is that I think a lot of businesses have been gatekeeper business models. But even when you used to go to superstores in the 1950s, you would stand up in line, you would tell the person behind the counter what you wanted, they would fetch it. You couldn't possibly be trusted to walk around the store. And one by one, and travel agency and the internet was a big revolutionizer in getting rid of that gatekeeper model, business model. I think more and more businesses, banking is still a gatekeeper business. But it's interesting, when it comes to women's health, it is still the gatekeeper model. It is still the idea that I know what's best for you. Yeah. And yet in most domains, if you look at where most wealth generation activity has occurred in the last 30, 40 years, companies like Amazon, it's been the removal of the gatekeeper. And hey, you have access to whatever you want, whenever you want. So I find it very fascinating that we still have this, and that comes into the language and everything else, that we don't talk about it. Yeah. Because you're making the gatekeeper feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And, my heart goes out right now to medical professionals, especially OBGYNs, postpartum nurses. With the overturning of Roe v. Wade, they have to be really careful about what advice they can give out, how they're interacting with their patients. The healthcare industry is just really hard right now when it comes to women's health. So if we as women feel more empowered to research, educate ourselves, ask questions, and really be our own best advocate in this space, I think the outcomes of that can be really powerful. It can save lives, it can save families, it can save a lot of women.
What was it Nietzsche said many hundreds of years ago? Principle is the enemy of reason. And I find that, women's healthcare is probably the perfect illustration of that dictum, where principle is becoming the enemy of reason. Yeah. And we've got to start off with, what is the objective? Is it better health outcomes? And Adam Grant in Think Again talks about this beautifully, about how he looked at the examples of where people had successfully persuaded communities that were reluctant to immunize their kids, how he did that. And he talked about how knowledge keepers are now knowledge curators, not gatekeepers. And I think when it comes to women's health, one of the things, any health actually, you've got to curate the knowledge rather than gatekeep. I don't want to keep going on about the gatekeeping, but I'm just fascinated by how many business models are destroyed when they're based on that gatekeeper thing. But the women's health model is still so reluctant to give up that power.
Yeah.
That's the journey you're on, right? That's the movement. That's the movement.
What am I doing? I'm so tired. No, I'm just kidding.
One of the ways we like to kind of land the plane, so to speak, is to ask you to think about the time machine question. If you could go back 3-5 years and give your younger self some advice, maybe 7 years, you pick the time interval based on all that accumulated knowledge you've learned in your journey, what would that advice be?
Oh, gosh.
That's a great question.
That's why we ask it every time. Thank you, Permjot.
It's a very good question. Advice that I would give to myself. Let's see. God, didn't so many random things in my life. I wouldn't even know where to start. I would say your ideas and your insights are valuable, regardless of your age, how far along you are on the path of your professional life. I feel like I have learned that my instincts are very strong, and I have very strong intuition that I didn't listen to in my younger days. And I wonder where I would be. I mean, I'm very happy where I am right now. I wouldn't change anything other than a few elections in the past. I wouldn't change anything because I'm sitting here today doing what I'm doing. But man, that girl 10 years ago was way smarter than she thought.
Trust yourself.
Trust your instincts.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
It's one of those things.
We've landed the plane, Permjot.
That is my call.
Oh my God.
Listen, I'm English. We go to a couple of Heathrow Airport gets very congested. We know that it's not like landing in America where you just, hey, there's plenty of airspace. We've got to do a couple of, runs. All right. So the plane hasn't landed yet, Captain.
Do you know what his time is worth?
Yeah, exactly. On the plane.
The wheels are down.
What's really interesting is, and again, Daniel Pink talks about it in the great book that came out this year, The Power of Regret. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is people don't regret decisions that turned out wrong that they made. Mm-hmm. They regret going against their instinct and trusting someone else. An investment, we do this mistake all the time. Yep. I've never regretted making an investment in a startup and it not working out. I've always resented listening to someone else on an investment that I felt I shouldn't be making and I did make.
Yeah.
Like I persuaded you to invest in that guy who got convicted. Actually, I did, didn't I? I persuaded you. That was a true story, and it's on public record. So I'm not libeling anyone. I persuaded you to invest in somebody.
Just like, and we're done.
No, it's okay.
No, I persuaded you to invest in somebody from
the guy that had really bad breath.
He had very bad breath as well.
Oh, no.
That should have been the first. That should have been the first tip off.
And he thought he was the second coming of Steve Jobs, and he then got convicted.
He was the second coming of Bernie Madoff, as it turns out.
He was. Oh, he's been extradited from the US and he's been banned, and he swindled something like $250 million or something.
I didn't. It wasn't a lot of money that I put in there, but it is completely Permjot's fault.
Exactly, and I feel terrible about it. I haven't compensated my good friend, but other than see, he can't even
spitting my whiskey out.
He can't even. No, that's how
I'm still so angry about it. Thank you for bringing that up.
But no, that's a regret when you listen to other people. But I think the power. But it comes from. I think it's gender. I think it's class. I think it's confidence. I think it's the skills you're brought up with. I think if you look at the English educational system for the elites, one thing it does is it teaches them hubris and overconfidence. So it's really interesting how much your background and who you are plays a role in how much you trust your instincts.
Thank you.
Where can our audience of millions of women and men that listen to the Startup Junkie podcast find out more about what you're doing?
Well, I'm working on a landing page for the Assicle, and I'm going to be asking for user feedback on this product, how women would like to use it, what they would like to pay for it. I will be seeking funding at some point, which makes me sweat to think about, but looking forward to that journey as well. I'm on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Prenger. Would love for people to check out FemHealthFounders.com to learn more about the FemHealth Accelerator Program and how to get involved in that. If there are any women listening that have a business in the women's health and wellness space that could benefit from the FemHealth Accelerator Program, we'll be opening up applications for the accelerator in November.
Awesome. That's soon.
Yeah, it's. I know. Again, I'm so tired. What are we doing?
That's why it's called an accelerator. You can't. Otherwise, if it was next year, it'd be a slow rater, wouldn't it?
That's right.
It's an accelerator.
Yeah.
We've got to move quick.
You know, we go big. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it big.
November.
We're gonna do it right.
Remember the 5th of November. You got to no, Guy Fawkes night.
Yes, yeah, it caused lots of trouble. Yeah, so just staying engaged with me as an individual. FemHealth Founders will be launching some social content around the Assicle soon. So I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Great to meet you in person.
I
And
know.
it's just, it's like meeting
So
a
great.
legend, and it's just I was like,
Thanks for putting up with Permjot.
Anytime. I love Permjot.
And if you do feel that the podcast intelligence ratio does need to be improved, like I think today it was.
Yeah.
We are both
We
available.
gained 70 or 80 points, I think.
I mean, our commentary on
picked up
LinkedIn reached
a new
thousands of
download or
people.
two.
Yeah.
This
See,
is
they're not even
amazing.
listening.
They're
You
not
gotta
even
share this
listening.
on your network too.
We better have
TechCrunch and everything.
a boatload of Canadian and UK downloads, my friend.
Yeah.
You better exercise that massive network.
Well,
of yours.
we actually had a reach of thousands, and we did this.
We did.
We had a conversation on LinkedIn where I was
And
a total.
did you get a good following on it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, it
that's-
was a hot topic.
That's
It was
cool.
like in the 15,000
Yeah,
range.
Wow.
Yeah.
because Elizabeth.
No.
We were talking
I
about
want to see that
imposter syndrome.
spike in Nova Scotia on the map.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's called Fiona. Hurricane Fiona.
Yes.
Did you know this is statistically true? Hurricanes which are named and tornadoes which are named after women kill far more people than hurricanes named after men.
Well,
This is
because we have a lot
statistically
of rage.
No, but do you know what? It's misogyny does kill men. Because what happens is when a tornado and a hurricane is named after a woman, people take it less seriously. It's statistically true. When it's named after a man, like Katrina. Katrina's lovely. That won't kill anyone.
So you're saying that if this hurricane had been Shrek, people would be running,
Probably would have.
for the hills. The Fiona, they're like,
Let's be honest, if you heard Shrek was coming, you'd be like,
Strong strike
Hurricane
reference.
Funny you should say Fiona and Shrek, because they were a couple, weren't they?
Yes, they're married.
yeah, that was the reference. That was the reference.
Clever.
You picked
See,
up
I
on
just
that.
assumed it was too. That was very intelligent, mate, and very.
He seems so shocked, doesn't he?
I am.
He's like so shocked. I can't believe he's
That is you.
joke you've ever cracked ever.
And it's a joke that worked. It's like the landing of the plane.
It was better than Eminem.
Oh yeah, that's far and away.
Sorry.
That's just rude.